Okay, so today we're going to make a package in Unreal and an actor, simple actor, that uses native code. Now, obviously, I have a few things to say with respect to this. And firstly, I don't know if something like this can work in a more obscure compiler or just something that's not Visual Studio. I don't know, for instance, it works in Dev C++. Well, you shouldn't really be using that anyway, but the point is, something like that. This is sort of optimized, if you will, for Visual Studio, right? And Tim Sweeney coded this like a million years ago. But here we are, so let's get started. Now, obviously I'm going to expect that you do know how to make like a basic class and everything, right? Or much more than that. This is a more experience demanding tutorial. So what I'm going to do firstly is I've actually already defined my class, and let me just get it out. So as you may well know, native code requires a modifier when you're declaring the class and its parent, right? Which is just native. That's simple enough. Now, all we're going to do is just add 1 to an integer, and it's just going to be 1 because, then the Boolean sets it true and you can't do anything anymore. That's fine, because all we need it to do is execute code, and we're fine enough with that. Let's get the basis down first for this, and then let's do something more interesting with it in maybe like a part 2 tutorial. So right now we're just going to set it out, basically, which is actually a much more complicated process than it might seem. But this is just a touch function. There you go, that's it. Now, I will want to comment on this, but basically what this is sort of like an identifier, but it's basically identifying with what will be in C++. Okay, and that's not even right. Okay, that's fine. Great. So what I'm gonna do, we're gonna set up our object, our package. I'm gonna name it fruits. Okay, and it's a little different because what you're gonna need in here are a few things. Of course, you're gonna need your standard classes, right? That isn't even spelled right. And then you're going to want to add 3 things: your includes, your libraries, and your source. The thing about this is you don't necessarily have to do it. In fact, I would say that this isn't really a good way to do it anyway. That is to say that at least in newer Visual Studios, you were able to link things easily by referencing them via configuration. So you don't need to do this. This is just for the UCC exe. So we're going to compile it. It's going to ask us, because it's going to detect that one of the classes has a native modifier, and it's going to ask if we want to update its header, which of course we do. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So let's name it apples.uc. Okay, that's great. Okay, and now let's go ahead and go to UCC. Okay, so here we go. Now, I don't have my fruits classes yet. It's not compiled, right? All you have to do, of course, you just have to, call the command. It's going to parse it, compile. Oh, hey, look, it's a native class. So what I'm going to do is press yes, because it's not actually over. It's not there, but we need it there. Now, my understanding of the convention is to place it all in one folder that is all inside the package, right? Which would be fruits in this case. I don't think that's really sensible for at least something like Visual Studio 2008 or 2013 or something, because again, like I said before, the configuration is there. In the case of something like 6.0, which it was built on, maybe they had to do that. I don't know, but that just seems like a strange way to do it. As Leg rightfully pointed out, and this is much of Leg's idea, was to package it within a project folder instead of do it by convention. So this is what we're going to do. Once you have that, we're going to go to fruits, and you can either set your project to that, or you can make a new folder with it, either way. But the thing is, you know, I mean, understanding it's just a file, right? So if it's just a file, it can be moved as long as it's correctly referenced and we have those files correctly written out in the linker, which we will use. Okay, alright. Now what we're going to do is set up our project. So go to New Project, Console Application. Oops, and I forgot one thing. Again, this is not by convention. So we're going to put it in Games Unreal Tournament, or whatever your Unreal Tournament directory is. In this case, it's just that. So go ahead and do that. And then we're going to set it as a DLL with an empty project. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to our fruits thing. And we're going to take the classes here. There's just one folder there anyway, right? And we're going to put all that in the UT project next to the VCX, C++ project, right? And now we're going to open this in here. Well, we're going to include it. So we're going to add the existing item, which is right there. And we need to do a few things in it because the issue with this is that by convention, you're supposed to make everything by configuration in the project settings. Leg found didn't really find, but it's sort of obvious that, I mean, there is another way to do that. We're going to add in a few things. Okay, so here we have to do a few things, including that we have to add some pragma comments for the linker when it runs through and builds. And this is that we're going to reference the libraries of engine and the libraries of core. Now, as Leg pointed out, you can change the preprocessor directive fruits API here, because it's only used once, I think. I'm pretty sure actually, and it's a type def to the same thing as Leg pointed out, which is basically the same thing as setting it to the export DLL in the configuration preprocessor definitions, which is Microsoft specific, that declare SPEC. No, but we can do it another way, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to set it to DLL export here. Okay. And that's pretty much all we need to do with respect to the automatically generated C++ header that it is generated by the UCC. So all we have to do here is include a few things. First, we're going to include our core and engine. Okay, this is going to be an engine include, and then any engine's header file. Then we're going to do the same thing with core, and yes, this is intentional. Finally, we're going to also reference our fruit classes, and that's all you need to do with the private header. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to our source file folder, and we're going to add a new item, which is our source file, and we're going to name it apples. And this is because it's already referenced in the classes the automatically generated header that UCC created, but also because it's the same thing as the class in Unreal. So it's going to be named Apples CPP. Now there are a few things we need to do first, including what Unreal has already defined these macros, including implement package, which is found in, I believe it's UNVC Win32, although it is all over the place. It's somewhere in there. We need this for our package, then we need this for our class, an apples class. And we also need to implement function, which is going to be our apples. With this is going to be the reference to whatever code we used before. I used 777, I believe. Yes, I do. And this is going to be, the reflection of the function in Unrealscript. Okay. There we go. Okay. So let's go ahead and actually do something. This is going to be a void function. Now this is all standard for Unreal, and you need to put this in here. Now we also have to do a few things, especially in the case of those functions that might be more complicated that you might use, I don't know. But one of them is guard. Guard and unguard, my understanding of them is that they are exception handlers for blocks of code. I don't know more than that about them. I haven't looked into the source code for them, but that's basically what it is. And this is all standard and is going to have to happen, except for what is everything after the guard and unguard. You can do whatever you want with respect to what you're making there, but we have to put those because it's just sensible to do it. Oops. And I'm just gonna print not hello world, but I mean we're just adding to an integer, right? So and of course, be mindful of the fact that you already declared those variables in your UC file. You're going to have to pay attention to that. But we're, of course, returning the result. So if I'm not mistaken, this is correct in terms of syntax, except for that. And I think everything looks good here. So what we're gonna do now, basically we already have everything. We have what's going to execute, what's going to happen in Unreal. We have the references to the source and everything else, but we do need to unfortunately modify some things with respect to the project properties and the configuration and even the linker, and we'll do that right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I did forget to include one thing, which is that you do need to reference the private header, which is right there. There you go. Then we should be good. We do need to go to our project properties and do a few things. First of all, let's go to debug, and everything looks fine here, except that, oh right, we also need to make sure that this is not debug and set to release instead. That should be fine there. Okay. We also need to make sure that our character set is Unicode. I believe I did customize everything with respect to language. You definitely do not want this to be treated as a built-in type. So that should be off. Okay, so I did forget a few things about what I changed here, and Leg basically switched it up so that it was more convenient and adaptive for 2013. So what I'm going to do is run through some of these tabs and give you a configuration of what we did. I don't recall that we did much other than changing the C++ in language and in linker. But what is very important is that we do set that to no. Treat wchar as a built-in type should be no, because the code is like insanely old, so yeah. Okay, so let's just run through them. We don't change it much in general, but of course the character set needs to be changed to Unicode. Okay, there's nothing in debugging that's necessary. That should be standard anyway. I already specified that. Okay, and we did do a few things in the linker, I believe. Additional dependencies macro was placed there, and we didn't go by convention in terms of what people seem to commonly be doing, which is referencing those libraries in there instead of in the code. So let me specify more of what exactly I'm talking about. Okay, the setup was to move engine in here and then put all the includes in here and the libraries within our project, so it's more convenient for us to reference them in case we did need them. Of course, we would have to reference the headers of engine and core anyway, and this is obviously an easier way to package everything together. We're using the pragma comment directive for the linker instead of, like I said before, putting that in the preprocessor definitions, which we did have a few preprocessor definitions, what I'm going to go over in a sec. But as well, we have everything bundled in our project again. And obviously, some header files aren't required, right? Because it's only engine and core that are the foundation. We wouldn't need to put everything out, as in we're not going to move the references outside of the project if we don't need them. It's only 2 folders, and there you go. I think that's much more convenient than going by convention and referencing them, putting them in the linker by adding the additional directories and then adding the libraries in there. Now, it did change up a few things with respect to the preprocessor definitions. Not much. I don't even think we need it. I did it just in case. It's really about what the engine and core reference, but it's just adding in because we already have by inheritance the Unicode definition, so we just added Win32 Windows, and that's it. So other than that, other than the bundling, there were a few things that I would like to point out about the fact that, well, geez, this code is extremely old that we're dealing with. Particularly, we can open something like core engine, and then look at UN template, was giving us a few problems. That's actually in core. That's what I figured. Okay. And overall, what we simply did is because, the compiler really tells you if you go through it with something, even if it's not Visual Studio, I think, what is wrong and where it is. So in most cases, it was just a matter of updating the code. I think it was 1400, around that area, that was giving us the most problems, simply because it didn't have a type name to identify what it was, and that was in tmap base, I believe. So we needed to add type names here. There was also something in, if I can find it, because I might not even remember where it was at. It was not in UActor. I don't even think it was in core, actually. Might be wrong. My understanding was that it was in engine, and it was something like Unactor. And there was an inline function or something like that that thought it was not declared first or something like that. And you just have to set it to null, and it'll be fine. Other than that, there were a few warnings which we cleaned up, and you can clean up that easily because it's just, again, updating the code. So we should be good. Let's go ahead and build. Okay, so again, against convention, we have UT project being released in our project folder, which you can actually just change up. What am I doing here? And there's our fruits thing that I built previously, just to make sure that I wasn't crazy, because I did replicate it and I don't know if it's going to work just yet. But I didn't do anything more than change up a few things what I just was talking about. Okay. Now let's open Unreal Editor 2.0, and I'm gonna open a map that I already have. And I do have fruits, and it did expand triggers, I believe. Yeah. Let's put it to be hidden as false. You can see that we have our native function right there and everything, right? And it should just count to 1. I didn't do anything more than that. Like I said, I'm going to, when I have the time, develop a more elaborate tutorial on it. Hey, let's do something now that we have this awesome ability to use native code. So let's go ahead and play test it and see what happens. It's only a broadcast message too, so it's not even like interesting, but there you go. And there you have it. I did change a few things, or did I? No, I don't believe I did. I didn't change anything in the code, I believe. So that's it. And there you go. That's a very, very basic function that returns 1. We could have even just said return 1 instead of returning a variable being incremented. Okay, so there you go. Again, this was sort of a joint tutorial, a joint project done by me and Leg, and you can find his YouTube here in the links below. We have the rest of the tutorial that is posted on the website. And other than that, well, I mean, that's it. There you go.